Good morning, students. In today's class of Managing Change in Organization, we'll read about a new topic, that is how employees learn organizational culture. In the previous class, we were studying about what is organizational culture, what are the various characteristics of organizational culture, what are the various functions of organizational culture, and what are the various types of organizational culture. Before starting today's topic, let's just recap what we have read in the previous class. Organization culture. When we say organization culture, it means a specific collection of values, norms that is shared by the people and groups that are working in the organization. And this is what that controls the way in which these employees and these people and groups in the organization they interact with one another, and also how they interact with the various stakeholders outside the organization. So this is known as the organization culture. So it is a collection of these norms and values that these people and the various people working in these groups of the organization they share in common, and this is something which helps them to control the way and the behavior and how they interact with one another and how they interact with various stakeholders outside the organization. So this is known as the organization's culture. When it comes to organizational culture, there are various types of organizational culture. First one is dominant culture. Dominant culture is something which expresses the core values of the majority of the members that the members share, and this gives the organization its distinct personality. So these are those core values which majority people in the organization they actually understand this or express this as the common share value. So this is known as the dominant culture, and this dominant culture of the organization gives a distinct personality to the organization. So this is known as the dominant culture. Now comes there is the subcultures. Apart from the dominant culture, which is generally shared by a lot of people in the organization, there are certain things, there are certain cultures, these are subcultures. They tend to develop in very large organizations to reflect the common problems or experience that the members share or face in a particular department or location. So it is a part of the sub branch of the subculture, where sub branch of the culture where this found in very large organization, where the people, certain people, they have some common experience or some common problems that they face, and this is related or confined to certain department or location of this large organization. Since they are confined to specific department or location of this very large organization, these are known as subcultures. So there's another subculture. Then comes another kind of culture, type of culture, that is strong culture. Strong culture is something is similar to dominant culture. Strong culture is characterized by what the organization has the core values and intensely held or widely shared by all the members. This is known as strong culture. Strong culture is something which cannot be changed easily in the organization. So this is known as a strong culture. Then apart from strong culture, there is something known as weak culture. There are certain core values that are not shared with high degree of intensity. Then it forms a weak culture. So if the common shared values and norms it is shared widely or intensely in the organization, then it becomes a strong culture. And when these core values are not shared with high intensity or degree, then these are known as a weak culture. So these are the various types of culture that is found: dominant culture, subculture, strong culture, and weak culture. Now we'll move on to the what are the various functions that are present in the organizational culture. What are the various functions of organizational culture? The first function of organizational culture is acts as a behavior control. Since we have already understood from the definition, these are the common shared values and norms that the people share in the organization and controls their behavior and how they interact with one another. So organizational culture's main function is that it controls the behavior of the organization, how they interact with people in the organization between themselves, and also how they interact with stakeholders, those are outside the organization. Then comes this organizational culture encourages stability. Since this is a certain common shared collection values and norms, so this gives, if this widely shared and it is widely shared by all the people in the organization, then all the people organization they have a strong and dominant culture, and this gives stability to the organization, and this increases stability of the organization. It gives a distinct character to the organization, and the new employees or incumbents joining the organization, organization, they feel much more stable that they have entered into a stable organization because the organization has a very strong and distinct organizational culture. So organizational culture also encourages stability. Then comes, it provides a source of identity. Since every organization has its own distinct culture, so this organizational culture helps in distinguishing one organization from that of another organization. So it gives a certain distinct source of identity or personality to the organization. So this is also one of the functions of organizational culture. Then comes cultural supplements, rational management. What happens, this culture supplements the rational management, the people's behavior, the rational, the way in which they behave, they should behave, the various norms. So these things are controlled by the organizational culture. Therefore the culture supplements this rational management. This helps in proper management. Culture also facilitates induction and socialization. So this is also very important function of culture, because whenever, what happens, the culture facilitates the induction program and also the socialization program. Both this induction and socialization is very important, because whenever this new hire or new recruits are hired into the organization, they are new to the organization, they do not know the ways and means in which the organization functions. So an induction program is generally done where everything about the organization culture, the management, top management, the various rules and regulations, the dominant culture that is present in the organization, and how the organization interacts and functions together. Everything is explained to this new recruits, and this also helps the new recruits to socialize with the existing members of the organization, to understand how the members of the existing members of the organization react with each other, how, what are the various values and norms that the existing members widely share. So this gives, makes them, helps in socializing with the existing members. So in this way the organizational culture facilitates the induction program and also helps in socialization. Also, the organizational culture is one of the important functions of organizational culture is it creates climate, because there is a particular organizational culture gives a particular organizational climate. It means the, it forms a climate in which the members of the organization feel free, they interact, they work, and their behavior is also controlled by this culture. So a more good working environment it created, if a culture is very proper, if the culture is very strong and a dominant culture is there, then it strong dominant unique culture is there, then it creates a very good organizational climate under which the employees can work. So these are the various functions of organizational cultures. Now let us move to the next topic of discussion. Today's topic of discussion is how the organizational culture is learned by these employees. So how employees learn this organizational culture. So this is very important. Culture is transmitted to employees in a number of forms, the most potent being stories, rituals, material symbols, and language. So, in this way, these are the major ways in which the culture is actually transmitted to the employees. Because whenever the new employee joins the organization, it is very important that the existing organizational culture is transmitted to these new employees, so that these new employees can understand the organizational culture and become a part of the organization. So what are the various means in which this culture is transmitted to these new employees or new recruits is either through stories are being told, or through what are the various rituals of the organization, what are the various material symbols of the organization, and the what is the language that is followed by the uh, organizational members. So these are the various potent ways in which this organizational culture is transmitted to the employees. We will understand each of these sub points in detail in the later points in one of the points. The first point we will discuss is stories. What happens? We'll give you an example in order to understand how stories transmit this organizational culture to new employees. When Henry Ford II was chairman of the Ford Motor Company, you would have been heard, uh, it would been hard passed to find a manager who hadn't heard that how he reminded his executive why they got too arrogant. It's the name that's on the building. The message was clear. Henry Ford II ran the Ford Company. So in this way, the stories about Henry Ford II, this imbibed a certain or transmitted certain attributes, certain characteristics, certain norms, certain values to the people. These the employees who are working in these organizations, they became proud because they understood that they are working for the Ford company. And Henry Ford too's story was actually inspiring people that they are working in a very famous company, and it is his name that is at stake, and they should work together in order to upkeep his name. So stories like such circulate through the various organizations and acts as an anchoring to this present in the past and legitimating the current practices. So what happens this when the stories like such are circulated in the organization, all the new members that are joining the organization, they come to understand that the various stories that is floating in the organization. Then what happens, this helps the organization to anchor the present in the past, so they can understand they have a very good past and they are able to anchor this present with the past, and they also get a chance to legitimate the current practices. So they will have understanding that why these current practices are followed, that they have a common route through which these common practices are now being followed. So in this way, the stories forms the foundation on which the organizational culture is based, and these stories are transmitted to the new employees in order to tell them about the greatness about the organization in which they have been recruited. So what happens apart from this, in stories they typically include what happens in includes in the stories, they typically include the narratives about the organization's founders, the rule breaking, rags to riches successes, reduction in the workforce, relocation of employees, reaction to past mistakes, and organizational copy. So these are the various examples or the various things that may be included in the stories that forms the part of the stories, and these are transmitted. It may be regarding narratives or explanation of various founders or organizational founders, how they were, what were their personalities, how they were able to manage the organization in such a way, in a great way, and what are the various stories about rule breaking, what was done and how the rule was organized as rule was broken, and what was the consequences of those rule breaking. So these are also forms a part of great story, rule breaking. And then rags to riches successes, to how the various people in the organization or the founders of the organization, they started very small, but they from the this very humble beginnings also, they become very richer later on. So this rags to riches successes, these are also found in very great and large companies. Similarly, the instances or stories where due to a recession or due to some other crisis, the organization had to reduce their workforce, or relocation of employees had to be taken place. So these also forms a part of a great story. Similarly, reaction to past mistakes, so how these past mistakes were made and how we have learned from the past mistakes, what are the mistakes, and how the organization is trying not to commit those mistakes, and how the organization is coping it with the dynamic culture, and how it has sustained throughout the past, and till now it stands strong in the environment, in the today's business environment. So all these things, this forms the part of the various stories can be formed, and these stories actually transmit the shared norms and values to the employees, and the employees, the new recruits, they understand about the organization, and they also are also inspired by this story. That is the one of the reasons these stories are being told to these employees. So in this way, these stories also help in transmitting the culture to the new recruits. Also, employees also create their own narratives about how they came into either to fit or not fit with the organization during the process of socialization, including the first days of the on the job, early interaction with others, and the first impressions of organization's life. Not only the stories regarding about the past, but stories regarding the present, like how the employees that are already the members of the organization, employees of the organization, how they were able to fit, and certain people, those who are not able to fit into the organizational culture, how were removed from the organizational culture, from the organization, and also the way in which they have socialized with this organization. And it includes how they were, what was their first day of job on the job, and how they felt and how they performed, and the early interactions they had with their seniors or with their superiors in the organization, their first impression about the organizational life, how what was their reaction towards the organization, the way the organization performs. So all these things also form the part of the stories, and all these things are required because this helps the newcomers to the organization, the new recruits, to understand the organization, the way the organization functions, and the culture of the organization is transmitted through these stories. Now coming to the second thing that is very important is the rituals. Rituals are the repetitive sequences of activities that expresses and reinforce the key values of the organization. So these are the repetitive sequence of activities. So whatever activities that is happening every year, uh, throughout the years the organization is in existence. So these repetitive activities, they form as the rituals. They become the part of the rituals of the organization, and these rituals, they express and reinforce the key values of the organization. So they re-strengthen and reinforce the key values of the organization, what the organization stands for, what goals are important, which people are important, and which are expected. This also throws light into what is the main goals of the organization, which people are important for the organization, and which people are not important and expendable for this. So all these rituals are very, very important for the newcomers or the new recruits to understand about the organizational culture. One of the best rituals of Walmart's company is the chant, which began by the company's founder, late Sam Walton, as a way to motivate and unite the workforce. So Walmart, they started a company chant. They have a special company chant, and this was started by Sam Walton, the founder of the organization. And this is way it helps to motivate and unite the workforce. So whenever the people of Walmart, they start their day, they chant this Walmart's company chant, and they it reinforces them, it strengthens them, it motivates them, it inspires them, and also unites them. So this is very, very important. These rituals actually help this organization to be this new recruits to be a part of the existing organization. Apart from rituals, there are also certain material symbols which also help in transmitting this culture for to these new recruits, the organizational culture to these new recruits. The layout of the corporate headquarters, the type of automobiles the top executives are given, and also the presence or absence of corporate aircraft are few examples of material symbols. Why these material symbols are required? Because these material symbols, they tell about the greatness about the company. They actually acts as physical evidence to the employees, to the new recruits about the company. And it may be regarding the how the layout of the corporate headquarters is, how big the headquarters is, or the types of automobiles the various top executives are given, or for performance the top executives are given. So this also inspires these new recruits to work with wholeheartedness and to perform better in their jobs. Also the presence and absence of corporate aircraft, if the companies having their own aircraft, how the top managers and the top brass of the management, they move from one place to another through aircraft, if the company has an aircraft. So these are the material symbols which is very, very important, because these material symbols helps these new recruits to understand the organization, to understand the culture of the organization. Other material symbols also include the size of the office, the elegance of the furnishings, the executive perks, and the attire of the employees. So these also shows, because an organization which has a very huge offices, headquarters, elegance of furnishings is that furnishings are very, very beautiful. Executive perks such as is given to the top managers, and also the attire that the employees and the top managers and the top brass of the management that is wearing is very, very good quality. This transmits a very positive and message of prosperity to these new recruits. So these material symbols also help in transmitting of this culture, and also this convey to the employee what is important, the degree of egalitarianism of the top management desires, and the kind of behavior that are appropriate, such as risk taking, conservative, authoritarian, participative, individualistic, or social. So these material symbols, they also not only convey about the culture of the organization, they also tell about the very important message about how there is egalitarian system in the top management, and how the what is the top management involves desires, and how everybody who performs is given a lot of executive perks, the kind of behavior that is appropriate in the organization. It may be such as risk taking, whether risk taking the organization appreciates risk taking, or whether the organization is conservative, whether the organization is authoritarian. That means everything is done according to authority, and nobody has there is a little bit rigidity. Also, whether the organization is participative in nature, whether the employees of the organization are encouraged to participate in the various decisions, and also whether it is individualistic or social. So all these kind of the top management desired, the way the management requires that the employees should behave. So all these attributes, which behaviors are attributes, all these things are being transmitted by these material symbols. Also, symbols become very powerful facilitator of culture, because if symbols are consistent with the stories they are narrated to the organization. So when these symbols become, these material symbols become more powerful facilitator of the culture, because when these symbols are consistent with the stories. Suppose we can say that a company like Henry Ford company, the Ford company, so it has a very huge story, so it's a very big company, so it has a very beautiful past. They were a very successful company. So what happens, they must be having certain material symbols, they might be having aircraft, they may be having huge incentives must be given to the managers, and also how the top management is behaving with these people, how those people who are performing, they are being appreciated by this organization. So all these things, this sends a positive image to the new recruits, it gives them certain idea about the company. And these material symbols actually help the new recruits to understand the culture of the organization, and these material symbols will be much more powerful when they are in sync with the stories that has been already narrated to the organizers or narrated up to the organizational members. Now, another thing that can be used in order to transmit this culture to these new recruits is the language. The kind of language is used to interact with one another, to interact with the stakeholders. Many organizations and subunits within them use certain language to help members identify with the culture, attest to their acceptance of it, and help preserve it. So there are certain jargon, certain code words, certain way in which the people interact. So these languages, it is very important, because this helps the members of the organization, the new recruits and the members of the organization to identify the culture of the organization, and understand how the people of the organization interact with one another. Also, it helps to attesting the whether it is to be accepted or not, or whether it can be should be preserved or not. So in this way, the language is very important. Unique terms describe equipment, officers, key individuals, suppliers, customers, or products that relate to the business. So unique terms may be given in an organization to describe the various equipment that is present in the organization, who are the various officers. They may be given names, and the various languages must be there in order to identify those officers, key individuals of the organization. Similarly, the suppliers, the customers, and also the products. All these things that relate to the business, certain unique language must be used to describe them. New employees may be first overwhelmed with these acronyms or these jargons that is being used, because they will be confused, because once they understand or assimilated with this act of this, and this act as a common denominator to unite the members and give a culture or subculture to the organization. So the new employees, whenever they are entering into this huge organization, any huge organization, first they will be overwhelmed, because first they will be confused and overwhelmed by these acronyms and the jargons and the special terminology or language that is being used by the existing employees. But once they become assimilated, once they become the part of the organization, once the socialization process is over, and once they are inducted into the organization, and they are performing, then this language only acts as a common denominator. So this acts as a common denominator and unites all the members of the organization, and also creates or gives a culture or subculture to the organization. In this way, the language, the particular language that the organization using, acts as a way and means of binding these people, and also transmitting the culture or the subculture existing in the organization to this new recruit. So in this way, the language also performs its role in the employees learn about the organizational culture. Suppose if we give an example, IBM means service is an example of a slogan that symbolizes that what the company stands for, both the employees and the society. So these are the common languages, common terminology, common sayings that is generally used in the organization. Like in IBM, it is used. IBM means service. So this is something which binds the people of the organization, unites the people of the organization, and also gives its unique culture and subculture. Apart from language, there are certain artifacts that are also present in the organization that helps the to transmit the organization to these new employees. They refer, when we say artifact, they refer to the total physical and socially constructed environment of an organization. So whatever physically and socially constructed environment of an organization, this is known as an artifact. Example of artifacts includes office space, equipment, rules, systems, and procedures that are in place. So these are the various artifacts because these guide the behavior of the employees, control the behavior of the employees. So in this way, it becomes a part of the culture and helps in transmitting the culture, this organizational culture, from the existing members to the new recruits. What happens? The kind of office space the company is having, the kind of equipment that is present, the kind of rules that are in place that has to be followed by the people of the organization, and what are the various systems and procedures in place, how the things operate in the organization, how the organization as a whole functions. All this becomes part of the artifacts, and this is very very important because the new recruit, whenever he enters into the organization, they understand from these artifacts about the organizational culture and subculture that is existing in the organization. Apart from artifact, and another thing is present that is also very very important in order to transmit this organizational culture to this new recruits is the heroes. There are certain heroes in the organization in the past. They are completely encouraged and they are brandished to these people. Brandishing of these heroes is done. They are shown to these people that these are the heroes of the organization. So what happens due to this, the new recruits, they want to be like heroes and they also want to perform and function well in the organization. They make these heroes make success possible, provide role models, and portray the organization to the external consequences. So what happens? These heroes, they act as a way of a role model. They inspire the new recruits, and these things are generally showcased to these employees, so, to the new recruits, so that they will be also inspired by these role models. And also these heroes are also a way in which the organization portrays itself or showcases itself to the external constituencies. So how the external people, people external to the organization, how they see the members of the organization through these heroes, they will get certain inspiration about the organization. They will understand how great the organization is, how the employees of the organization are, mm, who perform well, are taken as heroes, are given the respect of heroes. So these heroes, they act as possible role models to these new recruits. Heroes are the people who motivate other employees. So what are the heroes of the organization? They are generally the people who motivate other employees. So these heroes that is also formed in the organization. These examples of heroes, these role models, they provide a lot of help to these new recruits, and through these heroes, the new recruits can understand about the prevailing culture and subculture of the organization. Now, the last way in which the organization, the new recruits or the employees can learn about the organizational culture is the beliefs, values, and attitudes that is present in the organization. So it is very very important because these beliefs, values, and attitudes of the people, this helps in understanding about the culture of the organization, and this organizational culture or subculture is transmitted by to the new recruits when the new recruits understand these beliefs, values, and attitudes. Values are intimately connected with moral and ethical codes. They determine what people think ought to be done. So these are the certain intimately connected moral ethical codes that is present in the individuals of the organization, employees of the organization. This will determine what the people think that should be done, ought to be done. They think so. This force the people. These values force the people to work in a particular way or act in a particular way or to behave in a particular way, and they actually control the behavior of the employees. Beliefs, on the other hand, refer to what people think is and is not true. So this refers generally what the people think about a particular practice or about a particular norm or value that is already present. There's certain belief regarding that, whether they support it, they think that is right, or whether they do not support it or they do not think that is right or not true. So beliefs, on the other hand, differentiate from the values, and it refers to what people generally think is or not that is true. Attitude, on the other hand, connects the beliefs and values with feelings. So depend when the beliefs and values these are connected with feelings, then become attitude. Attitude connect these beliefs and feelings. They may be thought as a learned predisposition to respond consistently in a favorable and unfavorable manner. So this attitude, they bind these beliefs and values of the organization with feelings, and they may be thought, these attitudes can be thought as a learned predisposition. This is something, this is already learned by the employees of the organization, and how to respond consistently every time in a favorable manner or an unfavorable manner. So how, whether the attitude is positive, if it is a favorable manner, how the attitude is negative, it is an unfavorable manner. So the beliefs, the values, the attitude of the employees of the organization is very very important. These beliefs, values, and attitudes of the employees of the organization, they transmit the organizational culture and the subculture. This is the various way in which we can understand how employees learn about the culture. So these are the various 7 ways through which the organizational culture is transmitted to these new recruits, and how the employees who are joining the organization learn about the organizational culture. We'll read about the next in the next class, the remaining part of it. So please go through the video. I'll be sending you the notes digitally. Go through that. No need to panic. If you have any doubt, contact me. And finally, thank you for your attention.